What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Age of Quarantine. I'm David Castillo from Saint Vitus. How's everybody doing today? I'm on a Wednesday, a weird midweek vibe, but there's a good reason for this. And the reason for this is that we were able to get Chad from Frozen Soul, one of my absolute favorite newer death metal bands, kind of riding this amazing wave of great underground death metal that we got going on, and I'm super stoked to have them. It's been a second. Shout out to Tony from KCBC. You watching? I'm drinking. What's good? Let's get to Chad. Really excited for this one. I've been listening to their new record, Cryptovice, a whole fucking lot. Cheers, guys. Oh, man, we got a car vibe going.
Yeah, dude.
I love a car vibe, dude. We're chilling in the car.
Yeah,
How's it going, man?
It's
Cheers.
going good,
Good
dude.
to see you.
Yeah, man. You too. Yeah, we're actually at practice right now, writing the new LP, and I was trying to make it work in the jam space, but it wasn't working. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to the car.
Dude, this guy is breaking news right off the top of the fucking show. Can you believe this, dude? New LP right off the top. I love to fucking hear that, man. That fucking rips. So, Chad, I don't know, here at the Age of Quarantine, we like to kind of just go through the journey, man. Go through your story, figure out who the fuck we're talking to since their earliest days to what they're doing now, So let me just let's just start off with the kind of the obvious, man. Are you born and raised Texan? Tell me about growing up, man. Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, man. I'm born and raised out of Fort Worth, Texas, and spent most of my life here. Honestly, other than touring, haven't really been anywhere, unfortunately, and hoping after all this mess is over, I could finally see the world outside of here,
Sure.
Texas is huge, so it's almost like a country of its own. So, we just kind of, when you grow up here, sometimes you get a little stuck here. So, but yeah, it's awesome, man. Yeah. Born and raised here.
Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So if you can explain to people, you're like, Texas is a complex place in terms of geography and culture. And I've come to kind of find out where is Fort Worth in relation to kind of major cities like Dallas, San Antonio, Austin.
Yeah, it's North Texas, so it's 30 minutes away. I live 25 or 30 minutes away from Dallas, and I actually work in Dallas. And then it's 3 hours from Austin, 4 hours from Houston, 4 hours from San Antonio. We pretty much just consider it Dallas, but yeah, it's right, North Texas, and obviously
DFW, bro.
Yeah,
DFW.
Man. That's what it is, dude.
I know a couple of things. I'm from fucking Long Island, but I know a couple of things. And one of my very good friends is from Gainesville, Texas. So I've learned a couple of things, and this is all really important to kind of think about, because in the Northeast, Texas would be most of, you'd be in Texas would be Jersey, it would be New York, it would be all of these things. So this is very distinct in terms of scenes and growing up and things of that nature. So one of the questions I always ask, and I think it's really important too, is when you were really young, what kind of made you gravitate towards music? But when you were a kid, was there ever a moment where you had a older brother or a family member or a neighbor or whatever? When did you just kind of realize I love music, even before you got into punk, metal, or hardcore, or any of that?
Man, I think it was built into me from the beginning, because my grandparents, they owned this nightclub. What was a rock club throughout the 80s in Fort Worth.
Sick.
And
that's amazing.
It was called Savvy's, and my grandpa was the owner, but my family all worked there. And then my grandma's brother had a band called Savvy's that would play there, and Pantera used to play there back in the day, back in the hair metal days. It was the place. And when I was I don't know, 2 or 3 or something, my mom would take me to work when she would work. So, I would see live music when I didn't even know what anything was. So,
dude, that is so fucking sick. So we're talking, for those following at home, we're talking Diamond Daryl, not quite Diamond Daryl.
The Diamond Daryl.
The Diamond Daryl. Dude, that's amazing. So was it like very yeah, so kind of like what size of club would you say that Savvy's was?
I mean, I'd say it was probably like a 300 probably cap, 350 cap room. And like I said, this was when I was super young. So all I have is like
Totally.
stories and stuff. But it was like a sizable club and they would sell out local shows every weekend, like back in the heyday of rock, you know.
Totally.
And I would be there. And I mean, I remember a story. I don't even know if this story is true, but I remember my mom telling me that she put me on Vinnie Paul's drum set. And at first he was pissed because somebody was beating on his drums. And then he walked over and it was a little kid. And he was just like, okay, well, that's not, he probably
Yeah.
shouldn't be in here, but that's pretty cool. That's the
Yeah.
only story I have from there. But yeah, I don't know if, I don't even know if that actually
But
happened, but
it
that's
kind
what
of
I was told.
exposed, yeah, but it kind of exposed you though through that. Like, yo, my mom owned a nail salon, right? And
Yeah.
so when I was like a little kid, um, so my parents are both from Bogota, Colombia, and they
Yeah.
immigrated here. My mom owned a nail salon, and that's like how I first got really exposed to sort of pop culture too, was just like
Yeah.
listening to like 80s radio, like Madonna and Michael Jackson, and then also like
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses and Def
Yeah.
Leppard and stuff, sitting in this like salon full of like Long Island chicks and like scrunchies and shit and like, you know,
Yeah.
Rolling Stone covers and stuff. But that was like, I was born in 83, you know, so in the late 80s, that's what
Hmm.
like a lot of when, you know, five and six just starting to touch the world a little bit and
Yeah.
understanding things, right?
Yeah.
So your family's kind of this is family business, right? So
Yeah.
as you started growing older and stuff like that, you know, we're starting to develop our own tastes and stuff. We're getting into middle school, making friends, and you know, starting to become your own person. How did you start kind of developing your affinity for kind of heavier music?
Yeah. I think it was probably, I don't know, I think like sixth grade or something like that. I'm pretty sure my mom just kind of like started because my dad and stuff, my dad at the time before, before my parents were married, they, my dad worked there too. He's a bouncer at the club. So that's where they met and whatnot. And he was all into Metallica and all that stuff, AC/DC, that kind of stuff. So I'd always heard that. And I guess growing up, I wasn't too fond of it, but probably around sixth grade, my mom started getting me CDs like heavier rock CDs like Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory and I think like Rob Zombie and just a bunch of stuff like that. And I started getting more into it and meeting people at school, and then it just man, I just fell down the rabbit hole, dude. Probably like ninth grade, I was in starting to get into all sorts of stuff from even like screamo and stuff like that. I was seeing it all.
Sure.
And 10th grade is when I probably started going deep into like the more extreme music. And I met a friend at school. His name was Daniel, and I remember I'll never forget him showing me Decapitated. And I was just like, what the hell is this? This is
Yeah.
sick. And then
Yeah.
it just went down. I started finding just crazy bands like Battle Lore, and started getting it took me forever to get into Slayer because it was just so fast, and I was like just not feeling it. And then next thing you know, I started finding like that I really like to groove, and bought a drum set and just like went from there, man.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. And I feel like that's cool that you always talk about that you talked about your friend and those moments. Those moments are really, I think, always really important. I like to touch on them in this particular, you know, show because I feel like there's always something like kind of weird that happens or just one moment,
Yeah.
and it could be really random. Like I met
Yeah.
some dude at school that wasn't planned, and he showed me Decapitated, and it was like I was going this way, I'm going this way now.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of it was I had a friend older brother, Nick Abel. Shout out to Nick, my dude. But his older brother, Chris, you know, he was really into like local Long Island, like hardcore. And he
Yeah.
was showing us like stuff like Vision of Disorder, VOD, and bands like local bands like
Yeah.
that were just like, what? This is from here, sick of it all, you know, like this is from
Yeah.
right here. And VOD was different because they're from Long Island, and you're like, dude, those guys go to like, you know, the high school in the town next door, and you're like, they're playing with Madball. Like it was
Yeah.
inspiring. You were
That's
like,
awesome.
fuck, this is crazy, you know.
Yeah.
And I just want, and that was mind blowingly heavy at the time for sure,
Yeah.
you know. And then I just wanted more. I was like, I need to figure out more shit, right? To find
Yeah.
more stuff.
Yeah.
Was there like a record store or anything else that was sort of like pivotal in the scene there that you'd like to go and like check stuff out, or is it all really like online at the time? For me, it was kind of half and half growing up.
Yeah, I mean, like, unfortunately, like I didn't like I grew up like I don't know, man. I didn't have like my mom's car barely ran. Like I didn't have like a way to really get anywhere. So I started really delving in like in school, like I said, and then I think it was a lot around like SoulSeek and like Napster, and when that stuff started coming up is when I really started like delving into it, and I found a lot of stuff, and that's actually what led me to hardcore. And
Mm,
what led me to hardcore and punk. That's where I found stuff like Trial and Strife and that kind of stuff. And I started like just delving into it, man. And then I actually sort of strided away from metal and just went straight up into hardcore, listening to stuff like Gorilla Biscuits and Youth of Today and all that stuff, Breakdown, all that stuff, and then got into hardcore bands and stuff. And really, my music came from my exploration came from online stuff, and then the hardcore scene. Like through the
sure.
hardcore scene, it brought me back to metal again, and I'm like, holy shit, all this stuff is the same. It's all the same. It all stems from the same mentality and everything. So it's really like a combination of shows, friends, and then the internet, really.
Sure, yeah, yeah. And it's interesting how, now, like for me, born in 83 and kind of like the internet sort of became the internet we know now when I was like in college.
Mm, yeah.
So it was sort of like I'm growing and the internet's growing like kind of parallel to one another. So
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy how, people just kind of get into music now and it's very different.
Hmm.
I talked to,
Yeah.
you mentioned Gorilla Biscuits. Walter's been on this show.
Yeah.
He's how he got into music and different musics versus how I did and then you did.
Yeah.
It's like three different ways, right? But it's
Yeah.
still, but and that's only because of the technology. But in
Hmm.
reality, it's still friends, it's still people in the community, it's still somebody showing you something that's
Yeah.
still kind of really important and relevant. So you
Yeah.
said you bought a drum set first, so you
Hmm.
wanted to play drums, huh?
Yeah.
That's the vibe. What was the choice behind that? Was that the ghost
Man.
of, was that like the Vinnie Paul moment, or
It
what's,
might have
talk
been.
to me? Yeah.
I don't know, dude. Like I feel like it kind of I don't know, man. It kind of like I think it was just embedded in me from when I was a kid. Something about a beat. And it's the same way I write my vocals, man. I don't write my vocals to the guitar. I write my vocals to the drums. It's me and the drums. That's just how I like do it. I'm not even a vocalist. I'm a drummer. And I don't know, it just I just always heard the kick, I always heard the snare and everything, and I just was like, that's what I want to play. That's what I want to do. And I ended up saving up, and my mom helped me, and I bought my first, it was a first act drum set. It's the world's worst drum set ever. You couldn't tune that thing even if you put the best heads on it. Like that shit is never getting tuned. And then, yeah, I just went up from there. I think I got a Tama Rockstar kit and then a PDP kit. And now the drum set we use for us is an acrylic Silver Star Tama kit, and that's my kit.
Nice. Cool.
So,
So you started off playing drums. You were like, that's the thing. It's really interesting how, you're growing up, you're picking different things out and what you like in music and people listening in so many different
yeah,
ways, right? Like
yeah,
you could have five different musicians listen to the same song and they'll highlight different parts that they enjoy or don't enjoy, right?
yeah,
Depending on whatever it may be. So for
for
you,
sure.
it was really drums and stuff like that. When did you start like playing with people and like just trying to jam with other folks and stuff, because that's always a process, right? There's one thing where I'm like, okay, I'm in my room and I'm getting pretty fucking good, I'm like playing along to stuff, but now I'm trying to maybe write or play with other people. Did that happen pretty quick, or were you like one of these bedroom rock stars for a while?
I know. I don't know, man. Like, yeah, I've thought back to that. It's a little blurry back then, but I remember like I had a friend, his name was Daniel, and like we back in the early days when we were, hanging out and still listening to new metal and all that stuff. The very early days, I remember I would have some like sticks and I'd be playing drums, and he'd be like pretending to play the guitar and stuff. And this was like when we were really young, and that I think it was always just embedded in me that I needed to play music with people. And then I remember in being in high school, and I remember going to my first show and basically I rode in the trunk of my friend's SUV because there wasn't any room. And and from that moment, like I started meeting people, and I was on the drums every single day. I was on the drums for like 10 hours, just sweating my ass off in my garage, trying to get good enough and trying to get the beats down. And naturally, I hated playing along to music. Like I just needed to play with somebody. I hated,
Mm.
I never really learned covers or anything like that because it's not fun to me. I wanted to, it's like that live feels just in me, and I just need it. So I think 2004 is when I finally met up with some guys that I had started to see at shows, and they were looking for a drummer, and we got together and wrote some kind of like metalcore type stuff. The band was called All Will Fail.
Got
and
it.
yeah, that was
That sounds like a hardcore band.
and I think I had started something with a couple of like my friends that lived near me in the neighborhood I grew up in. And I don't remember what we did. I don't think we came up with a name or anything, but it was mainly 2004 started the journey, because that's when we ended up playing our first show. And it was a wild experience, and I've been hooked on it ever since. It's like
Sure,
crack,
sure.
man. It's like crack,
Yeah,
dude.
that first live experience
I'm
and just
chasing
kind of
that first live experience again,
yeah, nah, no, man, chasing the dragon, right?
man. Yeah.
And I think that's really it's always really powerful to sort of like get those experiences and figure that out,
Yeah.
and know that you want to sort of be a part of that. One thing I wanted to ask you too is like, a lot of people have pivotal shows that they went to, right? Sometimes they're really big shows, like, yo, man, I saw Black Sabbath and, whatever. Oh, what was certain shows that you went to growing up from like a big show or even a smaller show that kind of like started influencing you as well to be like, I want to do that. I like this right here.
There was one show that I went to. It was one of the very first shows. It was this like metal and hardcore festival in Arlington, Texas, which is where we practice. It's a little area, like a little mid cities area in between Dallas and Fort Worth. And there was this place called Division One. And I remember like not knowing what anything is, right? But 6 Feet Under played in a little ass room. It was a tiny room, and probably couldn't fit more than 40 people in the room. And it was a building that was like a bar, and it had a upstairs bar too, and that's where all the hardcore bands played. So that's where I got my like first exposure to that. But downstairs was what changed my life, because I saw it was Misery Signals, Premonitions of War,
Great
and
band,
6 Feet Under.
underrated.
Yeah, dude, it changed my life, man, because I saw like people like I saw all kinds of people there. I saw like the metalcore kids. I saw the metalheads. Everyone was, and there was a ton of other bands that played. I just don't remember. It was a huge fest. There's like 30 bands that played or something, but I just remember those three bands, and I remember seeing like Misery Signals play, and then I saw all the kids moshing and like hardcore dancing, and I was like, this is sick. And so I just tried it. And then that feel with the music, and then the kids, and they were even doing the same thing to 6 Feet Under. It was awesome. Everyone was just having
Yeah,
a good time. And I just remember like seeing the crowd's response to that and being like, I want to be all in this. This is what I
sure.
want. Like, I want to experience both sides of this. I want to see it from the stage, and I also want to be out there in the pit. I just, from that moment, that was single-handedly the show that did it for me. I remember like I made my mind up right there, like, well, okay, I'm destroying my life for this. This is what I'm gonna
Yeah.
do. So
Yeah, I think that comes a little bit later, but I definitely I agree with you as far as those moments. I mean, when
yeah,
you're, for me, I'm like, I didn't really know what like a lot of these shows what really like happened at them. Now I didn't really grow up with like YouTube where you're like, oh shit, that's what happens at a Trapped Under Ice show, or like
yeah,
that's what happens at a Cro-Mag show. Like I had no idea. So when I really first saw that energy and I was confronted with that energy, and what the music did to people, I was just like, wow, this is so crazy.
Yeah,
I
dude.
love this. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
man.
crazy about it too. I want to be a part of that. And like, I think the way you put it was really cool. Like, I want to be on both sides of it. And it's a really different feeling from both sides of it
It
too,
is.
right?
Yeah.
And doing different things. So now you're playing drums and you're starting to kind of jam locally with different people and stuff. When did it click? Did you have like a good first like local band that we might not know about or anything like that that kind of started playing a lot around DFW or like in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, I started, we started that first metalcore band, and then through that didn't end up working out, but like the friends that I made in that are still my good friends to this day. They still go to shows. They actually play, actually two of the members play in a band called Cognizant now from
Oh,
here.
I know that band. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were in that band with me, and I'm still good friends. I talk to them every other day. And then from there, 2000, I think 7 is when I started. I got together. I met my friend Michael, a different Michael than the one that's in Frozen Soul, and we started a band called End Times, which is still a band right now. And it started off as like a hardcore punky sort of like, I don't know, 10-yard fight mixed with like trial type of thing, and it
You
evolved.
like Trial, man. I
I
feel
like
it from you.
trial, dude. I do, man. That's one of the first bands where I was like, oh my god, yes, this is the energy. And yeah, so we got that band together. A bunch of stuff ended up not working out. We went through a ton of member changes. We even had like Nick and Chris from Power Trip for about a year were in the band when we did our demo in 2011. And then we ended up kind of like just going on hiatus, and then we started a band called Vulgar Display, and we actually like did a bunch of touring with Vulgar Display. And, you know, it was short lived, but it was a lot of fun, and that was my like stint into hardcore. And then from there, we got End Times back together, wrote an LP that's still being worked on, and then in the meantime of recording that, Frozen Soul came about. So we
Oh,
just
wow.
like,
Okay. So
hmm
we had kind of like a period where End Time sort of was a little bit off, and then you went and then you started Frozen Soul. So
yeah,
let's talk about End Times a little bit because I want to know a little bit more. Obviously, kind of with the rise of honestly Iron Age first to me.
yeah,
I was in love with Iron Age when I first heard them, and then Seeking Eyes, just I think one of the great records of like my life. Honestly, I
yeah.
think it's just one of the best I've heard. And then obviously the rise of Power Trip and stuff too. So like this Dallas, this DFW scene and everything like that. What was it like just being a band in that, and just kind of the Texan hardcore scene in general? And can you just talk about your experiences there and kind of making friends? And also it's kind of interesting because you have three big cities within Texas, right? You have
Yeah,
Austin, Dallas, San Antonio's coming up, and then Houston too. So maybe like four and a half,
yeah,
which is weird for one state, right? So you could do
yeah,
like these Texas tours and be
definitely.
like, I'm playing with Bitter End today, and then I'm going over here and playing, with Power Trip maybe, and like there's just so
Yeah,
many cool bands. So yeah, I fuck with Texas. I love it.
hell yeah, dude.
And the music that comes from there. So tell me a little bit about just kind of coming up in that scene and kind of how it felt for us who are listening at home.
Um, I mean, honestly, it was amazing, dude. Like, we had this club. We still have it, but it's not the same as it used to be. It was called Red Blood Club, and it's where like the craziest shows happened, dude. I remember the Bitter End like Climate of Fear record release show, and it was the most like it still gives me chills right now talking about it. How when they played the Panic intro and the lights went off and everyone's going crazy, dude. It was insane, but like that coming up in that scene is like 100% why like we are and I am the way I am. Like the comfort you get from all the friends and people that you don't even know that treat you like family, and everyone supported everyone's bands. It was awesome, dude. Like it's been great. It's been honestly great. I remember, even before Power Trip with like, you know, Balls Out, Riley and them's old band, and the other guys like with Reality Check and, Hands of the Few and all these bands from here that just like were just great friends and stuff. And I mean, it was amazing having that, because like I said in the beginning of this, like Texas, it felt for me like its own country, because it was like a wild dream for me to travel to some other state for a festival. But at the end of the day, I didn't need to, because I could just go 3 hours to Austin and see, Iron Age at a little fest down there. And it felt like going to a different world when you went to Austin. And then you go to Houston and you'd see Will to Live, or, Die Young or something. And it just felt like a different world. And then, San Antonio got Bitter End. It was just wild, man. It was so crazy. And then, when fests and stuff like Sound and Fury and all that stuff started popping up, part of me like really wanted to go, but then I'm like, I just kind of, I don't know, we had it all. It felt like this
Yeah.
was it, and it gave me everything that I needed here. And I was like, man, I don't ever really want to leave until I did. until I did
Yeah,
want to leave. But
sure.
it's been wild, man. And in
But it's
times,
cool to kind of home grow it, right? And to
yeah,
kind of have something to kind of cultivate. And like you
yeah,
said, people supporting one another
hmm,
and just making dope art, just like trying to
yeah,
figure this shit out, right? And when you look at like the best, scenes in punk and metal and hardcore and all that, like how different is that than Ruthie's in San Francisco, where like, thrash, Bay Area thrash really popped off, or CB's in New York, or L'Amour's in New York, or around the 930 Club in DC and stuff like that. Like every place has places, but like a community that needs those places, and then just can everyone kind of working together to kind of create something cool. And of course, there's going to be different bands that come out of it, but it's like everyone playing and doing stuff together and supporting another. That's a scene. That's what it takes.
yeah,
We're talking on the internet, but like you got to show up and like
yeah,
make it happen. It
yeah,
takes a little bit of work, like, but
exactly.
it's really cool when it does. Like, trust me,
Yeah,
like you can go see, fucking great bands and have a great time and feel those feelings and see a room go crazy, or a room be totally still
yeah,
and just wait for that next moment and just have that tension, and like I live for that shit,
yeah. Same,
it's
dude.
such an amazing feeling and thing, and something that I greatly miss over obviously this past year of not having that with our
Yeah.
fellow people, right?
Hmm.
And stuff like that. So like you said, Texas is like, yeah, its own world, a really huge scene with like how big all of that was. So was it really just kind of like doing like weekends throughout Texas and stuff like that, and building up a lot of your kind of playing and friendships
Hmm.
and network that way?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, I remember like the biggest, oh man, it was insane. I remember, I can't tell you how many jobs I quit and stuff to go to like Fun Fest. And I remember when I used to like work, man, and I still do. I love Integrity. But I used to be like
Fuck yeah.
insane for in love with Integrity. And I remember I worked at Hot Topic, and I'd straight up quit my job when they wouldn't let me off to go see the Mags, Bad Brains, and Integrity at Fun Fest. And this was like the first time that the Mags had done their like getting back together thing and touring, like, or at least here. Like, I was like, oh my God, I never imagined I would ever see them, um, and uh, and there was that's just one weekend. Then we have Chaos and Teos, which I wish would just make a comeback one day, because that was like the greatest time of my life. Seeing, I just can't even, just an insane amount of bands. And that's where I saw Bolt Thrower, which changed my life. So, it just, that's pretty much all we had to do. And then we had Fallcore in Houston, which was like a really badass, like only Texas sort of like, festival. So yeah, it's just doing weekends, man, meeting people all over the place. And like I said, when you go to those cities, it felt like you were in a different like state. It didn't feel like
Totally.
Texas. It was so weird, but it was so awesome at the same time.
That's awesome, man. And I think that the camaraderie, everything's cool, and clearly Texas has one of the great scenes in the country for
Yeah.
a lot of the music that we both love. So let's get to Frozen Soul, man. It's obviously, we're on the Frozen Soul account here. It's an amazing project. I was in a band called White Widow's Patch with my friend Nick MD, and I sang for the band, and we were kind of doing something where we were mixing kind of like that sort of Nola, sort of crowbar-y sound with death metal. And
Hell
I
yeah.
feel like when I listen to Frozen Soul, I'm like, man, I wish this band was around when we were around, because you guys play that sort of Tampa style, a la Obituary, and those sorts of things, but you give it the swagger, the flavor of being, I think, where you're from, and that's just because of who you are. Like, it's in the water. It's like you can't fake the funk. Like, I could never be
Yeah.
in a band like White Widows Pack again without Nick, because like all
Yeah.
my friends are
Yeah.
from Long Island and they play too straight, like you don't have the feel. Like he's the guy, like he grew
Yeah.
up in Texas. I did it, right? So tell me about, putting it together. And you just said like you saw a lot of these, you saw Bolt Throw, saw certain things. What kind of compelled you to start a death metal band?
Well, I mean, I think like it goes back to like when I was talking about being in like Vulgar Display. I sort of realized that when we were writing hardcore, like hardcore was more or less like the mentality. It was the aggressiveness, it was the delivery. But the riffs we were writing were metal riffs. And I just started delving more, and then I started realizing like the 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 influence that I have is coming from like old school death metal. And when I met Michael, Michael Monday, who plays guitar in Frozen Soul, like, it just clicked because I went deep down the hardcore rabbit hole first. He went deep down the metal rabbit hole first. So we just
Mm,
kind of combined that together. And, that's just really how it came together. I mean, it was wanting to do metal, but like more groovy and like, movement based, so
got it. Yeah, because I feel like you guys sort of have this, yeah, just a swagger with it that like really belies like where you're from, which is really kind of cool. And I'm just like, oh, I get this, and I just like fell in love with like the approach and how everything kind of just has a swing to it. And like
yeah.
that, like I love that, and in the playing and stuff like that. So when you're putting this band together, right? So you're talking to your homie, and you're like, all right, cool, like we're gonna do this you know, sort of hardcore and delivery, Texan and swagger, death metal and genre
Yeah.
sort of thing, and we're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna bring this to the people. But I want to sing, or how did it kind of come? How did that kind of come together? Because
Well,
up until this point, we're behind the drum kit. What's going on?
yeah. Yeah, well, like I said, like originally when we started the band, like we were trying to we were going to start a death metal band, and we actually met up with two of our friends from here. Well, they're from Lubbock, but one of them's Kyle, who plays guitar in the band Judiciary.
Oh, great band.
And so yeah, like those guys are fucking awesome. Kyle is really cool. He's like super homie. Love that guy. And his roommate's name is Cage, is a drummer. And so we just got it together. And I was like, well, I kind of want to do like vocals because I'm always playing drums for everything. And that ended up not working out because everyone had different schedules and stuff. And so we put the band down. And when we picked it back up, when End Times was like writing and recording our new record, I started playing drums again on it because I was already recording drums for End Times. So I was like, okay, let's bang a demo out like in our downtime because we were having issues with End Times and the production and stuff was just taking way too long. And so me and Michael were fired up and we were like, all right, let's just go for it with this again. So we got it back together with just us two. And then like very shortly after Sam joined, and we started cranking the demo out. And you know, pretty much at that point I was like, oh, we got to find a drummer because like I'm hearing like vocal patterns and I'm thinking of like lyrics still, and I had already had a bunch that I had written before, and I was like, you know what, like let's get a drummer. So then we got a drummer, and that was like what brought that into existence with me being a singer. And boy, was I nervous because I had no idea what I was doing, dude. No idea. I still don't know what
Yeah.
I'm doing.
I mean, I feel you, I just wanted to do it.
Mhm.
I don't, besides now, I know I program drums and I play synthesizers and I make, industrial music and stuff like that, but
Oh yeah.
I don't play instruments. So the whole time I was in Primitive Weapons and White Widows, I was just like learning on the job, right? And approximating the things that my heroes have done and
Yeah.
trying to sort of find myself. One thing that I was curious about though is, like you said, you always heard the kick and the snare in songs and stuff like that. When you write your vocals, you're writing them in a very percussive way, which is really
Mhm.
cool. I think that really that's the way it should be done in heavy music too. You're just like an emotional drum, a different sort of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask, is it something where you still like to have a lot of input in the drums because it, kind of affects the way that you do your vocals, or how are you sort of setting that scene? Because it's obvious that they're playing off one another.
Yeah, yeah. Me and Matt, like we write them together. We write everything like together. There's even times where like the end riff in Arctic Stranglehold, that whole entire last part of the song is a mouth riff I wrote when I was in class, and I wrote the
Sick.
drums to it. And then obviously like when Michael came in, when I showed it to him, we fleshed it out and added a bunch of extra stuff to it. But like the
Hmm.
base of it was written because I had like something in mind, and then I'll show it to Matt. Sometimes Matt does the same thing. So we really play off of each other, because like I could never be like the type of vocalist, which there's nothing wrong with doing this. Um, I think it sounds sick, like Deicide, Cannibal Corpse. It's very driven with the guitar, it's
Yeah.
very ruthless. And I like to break it up, and that's why like I vibe so well with Bolt Thrower and Carl Willits, John Tardy, Obituary and stuff. The reason why I vibe so well with those guys is because like their vocals are to the drums. Like
Sure.
if you listen, it's very groovy. It's and it even boils down to like Pantera sometimes, some Pantera songs.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
like yeah, it's all like it's all the drums are a major part, man. And we all in the band like we very focus on that. And when we're tuning up the songs and stuff, like that's what we're focusing on. How can we make this drum fucking slap you? And then the vocals follow with it, and that's just, I mean, like even in there right now, writing the new record, that's what we do. And I think some of the stuff we're writing right now is like way better than Crypt Device. It's just
Look at
way,
that.
it's
Look at
way
that.
better. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's exciting, right? We're having this chat, and you might walk into something great that's happening right now in
yeah,
real time.
yeah,
Best show on the fucking internet. Unbelievable.
yeah.
Let me ask you about. I always like to ask about like, the imagery and the name and stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
you guys are from fucking Texas, Frozen
Yeah,
Soul.
yeah,
Let's talk about how that sort of came to be. And I love the sort of this sort of like White Walker imagery that you guys got going on, and like the vibe of it all. Like it feels, I mean, dude, I was shoveling my fucking driveway to Crypt Device, and I
yes,
was talking to other friends of mine who are like, man, I dig this fucking Frozen Soul record, man. They played at Vitus like right before the shit went down, like a couple months before that, and I'm like, yo, this is the perfect weather. And my other friend was like, dude, I listened to that shit while I was walking today, and I was just like, in the Northeast, you are like a seasonal band. Like people are like, yo, we fuck with this heavy right now. We are living
yeah.
this. But in Texas, people were saying in the comments, maybe you brought that shit down. Tell me about how Frozen Soul, just the name and the aesthetic kind of came to be, because it's super cool and it gives the band a really different identity that I feel like is so separate from a lot of death metal bands too, or
Yeah.
like, you have a lot of the gore grunt or like, kind of things of that nature, or more horror-y things. This has a palette, a color, a whole vibe that is just like cool. I feel this. So tell me about
Yeah, man, like, it's been it's been so funny. Actually, before I tell you all that, dude, the funniest story. So we played that Vitus show. Okay, it was
it.
hilarious because afterwards our old guitar player Ray, we were in the hotel, we stayed in like this little hotel in Jersey, and he was like, we were talking about ways, how do we up our stage game? How do we really fucking bring this? And he goes, dude, we should buy a snow machine. So that night we bought a snow machine on Amazon and had it delivered to our house. And it was there for our home show, which was the last day of tour. I think it was like 3 or 4 or 5 days, something like that, after that Vitus show. It was there when we got there, and I hooked it up, but didn't get to use it at all until we got on stage. And it was because of that Vitus show that we bought that. And that was what ended up circulating, that ended up getting us seen to be signed in the first place, was the
Is
videos and the stuff
the snow
from the Snow
machine?
Machine that we thought of from playing the damn Vitus show.
And didn't someone bring a shark for you to sign at the
Yeah,
Vita show, like a frozen shark?
yeah, it was like a fucking cryogenically frozen shark. And we were just like, what the hell? Yes, we will sign that.
I'm gonna put it out there, man. If you're the dude or the gal or whomever you are, the person that fucking brought the shark to Vitus, get in touch. Free Saint Vitus merchandise for you. If you're the shark person, I'm putting it here on the fucking show. Hit my line.
Yes.
You know where to find me. You're gonna get some free Vitus shit, because that is one of the cooler things,
Yeah,
hysterical things that I heard of too. And I didn't get to see that moment, but
dude.
that's amazing. But like, you're building this sort of world and this aesthetic that like
Yeah.
no other death metal band really like has that, right? So
Yeah,
tell
and
me,
that's what
how'd you think of it?
yeah, that's like that's one of the things, like we were just trying to look for ways to have fun. I mean, really, the music is dark. Like, and not only is the music dark, but the themes are not just about like, oh, I'm cold and I'm shivering because it's 30 degrees outside. Not that. It's the cold nature of human beings and this world, and how fucking insanely cold it can be, and how merciless and ruthless and not unforgiving it can be.
Sure.
And having to deal with that, whether it's depression, just trying to wake up and go to the job you hate, or dealing with, abusers and, just toxic, fucking vile people that need to be eliminated. That's really, that's what those are the themes that are already in the music. So when we named the band Frozen Soul, we were like, how do we just keep going with it? How do we have fun with something that's just like so dark already? And so we just started going, okay, the name's Frozen, so everything's going to be cold. We're going to keep the theme going. And we just kept trying to find new ways to like, to do things that just went along with it. And, at a certain point, it started kind of like doing it for itself, because it got cold outside and everyone was like, well, this shit, God damn it, Frozen Soul left the snow machine on. I can't tell you how many times I've seen like, that being said. So, we just kind of kept going with it, man. And, we're always looking for ways, because we're all goofy people, like, people, think our music's like dark and whatever, and we're just like these mean people, but like, we're goofy, we like having fun, dude. This is all fun
Sure.
for us. So,
Yeah.
we just try to find ways to just keep doing it. And then it's real funny too, because that tour that we played Vitus, that was in January of 2020. That was like
Hmm.
some of the last stuff we did before lockdown. And it's so funny, because we were like 3 days away from the tour, and somebody goes, you guys do realize that that it's going to be frozen all up where you're going. You picked the worst time of the year to go to the East Coast. Like, why would you do that in January when there's snowstorms and blizzards hitting everything? And we were just like, I didn't actually even think that happened. Like, we didn't even know that happened. It's like, it wasn't even cross our brain, because in January here, it's 70 degrees sometimes. So like, we just didn't even think about it. And the snowstorms were behind us the entire time. When we left Philly, there was a huge storm that had like a 50-car pileup, and a bunch of people died.
It was
Literally,
chasing you.
yeah, it was right behind us. And then literally right after we finished playing Vitus, it started snowing in New York. And we went to the
Well, I'll tell
hotel.
you what, and you made my job easier, because trying to get bands to play in January is fucking tough. So I was like, these motherfuckers are out here living it. They are
Yeah.
about the name. They don't give a fuck. And I fucking loved it. I was like, thank you, Frozen Soul, because it was a great night and
Yeah,
an
it was
awesome
awesome.
show. And who did you play with? It was was it Vomit Forth?
No, yeah, it was Vomit Forth. Man, I love those guys.
Oh,
They're
really?
so
Actually,
sick,
that
dude.
was the last show that I saw before the lockdown. Was after that they came back with Saint Vitus Bar. Um,
Sugabog, yeah.
yeah,
Love
exactly.
those
And
guys
with
too.
two bands that are fucking great. And
Yeah,
so I saw that show, but
yeah.
that was the last metal show I saw at Saint Vitus. But yeah, I love the theme. I think it's so cool. I think it's so fun. I think you inspired you know, metal dudes pushing 40 who have to do, you know, shoveling work in the Northeast. You made like the perfect record. Like it's so funny
Fuck yeah.
that yeah, I was just talking about it with a bunch of friends, and everyone was like, "Yeah, we're down," you know, living that icy life.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. And who does all of your artwork? Because like the way that it's reflected through the artwork of the records is really beautiful, super cool, really intricate.
Well, we had the original demo art that was like spur of the moment thing through a guy. His name's Manuscripts of Death. And we don't work with him anymore for some reasons. And then the rest, basically after that, we found this guy's name's Tomorrow Ghost on Instagram, and he puts together most of the black and white stuff for us, and he just nailed the theme the exact way we wanted it. So we have him, and then we're starting to gravitate more to like paintings for our art. So we have Wormwalk on Instagram. His name's Jerry. He's like literally one of the coolest guys I've ever met. You know, he's worked with a ton of bands, including I think like Internal Champion and just a bunch of different bands. And he's who did like all the artwork for our like Wrecking Ball Metal Madness series and all that stuff. And then besides him, we've used a couple of other artists here and there, but we always try and like, when I'm like looking for artists, I'm always trying to find like, okay, like we don't want the gooey look, you know, the gooey,
Uh-huh.
melty skeleton look. Like we need it sharp and pointy, and you know, we need it to be frozen. And so we've really been lucky enough to like find the guys that can really like
You're
do
like
that.
Pete Steele. Pete Steele used to go back in the day, you know, when printing was really more difficult. He was obsessed with green. And we'd go and he'd be like, "No, I need the green to be like this." And like go to the printing places and was like it's like the green, how the green looked, everything about it had to be like, right, you're like, this shit has to be cold enough, pointy enough, no gooey bullshit. We're frozen soul, not, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
gooey bands are cool, but we're not a gooey band, and
yeah,
I love that though.
yeah.
To me, that's attention to detail, and it's really really cool. So tell me about like linking up with like Maggot Stomp and stuff like that. Obviously, Maggot Stomp, I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this know, great, you know, label that has a lot of really awesome up and coming death metal bands. Everyone from Frozen Soul and Command and Von the Fourth and 200
Yeah.
Stab Wounds, and I mean, we could go on. They have a lot of good stuff and doing a lot of, you know, good contemporary death metal. And, you know, you guys are definitely, I think, one of the bands that stood out kind of like earlier on in that kind of
Thanks, man.
MAGA style coming up. So how did that kind of like, you know, relationship start?
So me and Michael, more than me in the very beginning, Michael was always a super fan of Maggot Stomp from the very beginning. He bought pins from Scott, and um, when we wrote the demo, we were like, okay, well, like we went for an old school sound. Let's like go hit up one of the labels. Like it was between Rotted Life Records, Desert Wastelands, Maggot Stomp. I think there was like one more, I don't remember it. Maybe like Head Split or something like that. But like Scott, he just like had the vibe that I loved as soon as I saw it. And like when I saw like Mortal Wounds logo for the first time, I was like, this is so sick. I can't read a single fucking word on that damn logo, and that's sick as fuck. I want to be
Yeah.
on that. I want to know them. And yeah, I think Michael one night when we got the demo finished, or I think it was close to being finished, he sent it to Scott, and Scott was taking a shit and just happened to open up the email, and was digging it because you know he was in a transcending moment of clarity. So he was just like, all right, and he hit us back, and you know then we became best friends. So
That's amazing. I love that.
yeah.
Big hairy shit, big hairy metal. We
Yeah,
fuck. That's the way it needs to go down. So, they say in life, timing is important. Everyone, let this be a lesson to you.
yeah,
This is what we're talking about. Well, and that's
yeah,
amazing, you know. And I feel like once the demo started hitting, it all like everyone's like, all right, cool. What's up with this band? You know, I did, and
yeah,
you know, I was recommended. I was like, yo, check these guys out, Vomit for them. They're like kind of coming up. It's like some Maggot Stomp level, like, and I was like, oh, all right, cool. Like, let me see
Yeah.
what the fuck's going on. And I was like, oh, sick. Cause, it's interesting. Just the ebbs and flows of things too. Like, I love a lot of like, death metal that's more like along the lines of like an Ulcerate or a Portal, or like really on that super kind of like pushing the boundaries on a certain level. But
Yeah.
then it was like, oh, okay, cool. Here's a bunch of stuff that's sort of harkening back to a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed, on the old school sort of side, and also like a little bit more to me. I mean, you mentioned both, but to me, very American sounding in a way, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, all right, cool. This is like a wave of like American bands playing kind of American style death metal to me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's fucking sick. I'm like, let's do this. All right, I'm into it.
Yeah.
And then you guys all of a sudden start getting, signed to Century Media, and it seems like there's like a next play and stuff like that. How did it feel to kind of get a bunch of attention sort of rather quickly with this project, and how did it kind of play out with like shows and stuff like that? Did you kind of feel it right away, or was it like a slower burn? How did that kind of feel?
Well, it's like, honestly, it's kind of bittersweet because, man, the Century Media thing happened after our last tour. So we had started to get word of like that things were getting real with Century Media in February, around the time we played with Obituary. It was our last local show. It's
Mike
actually the
Gitter,
show.
yeah?
Yeah, yeah. And we
Shout
filmed,
out to
we
Gitter.
actually, Gitter's a funny fucking dude, and he's a legend. He's a great guy. We were playing, we filmed that set with Obituary. We filmed that for the In Case of Nice music video, and that was the last show. So the rumor was out because we had told people that we were like talking to them, but like we didn't sign until I think it was April or something, or I can't remember the exact time, but it was around April. So man, we didn't even get to feel it like from shows at all. Like all that
Sure.
shit was growing from the demo, and our tours were getting crazier and crazier. Like not a single show like flopped. Like every show was badass. And it was wild because I've been used to so many tours where you got to sleep on floors and shit. But we didn't have
Yeah.
to with this band, and it was wild. So we were feeling like that things were growing, but as far as like the success from the label, like because of the pandemic, it's just been online stuff. So it's bittersweet and it feels great, but part of it doesn't feel real yet until we're going to be able to get back up on stage and play live. So it's weird. I mean, we're staying busy, obviously, writing the new record, doing more music videos, the live stream series and stuff. But still, like, we got the gears and the wheels spinning, but like without touring, it's like I haven't really been able to like feel that full frontal assault of like being on a big label and all that stuff yet. So
Sure. And for me, like on my side of just, doing stuff and like, booking bands and using Vitus as a platform to always kind of, push underground music and art that, we like and I like and stuff, there's so many bands that I'm like, damn, dude, I wish I could have seen the Frozen Soul headliner on Crib Device, man. You know what I mean? Like, I feel
yeah,
like unfortunately we're losing out on moments for all of us. For the artist, it's heartbreaking because it's an awesome record, and I would have loved to do a lot more than shovel my fucking driveway to it. You know what I mean? Like,
well, hopefully things will be coming back here pretty soon. I mean, I think
exactly. So,
but,
with all the optimism of doing that, but within that kind of lost year, and I can't wait for bands and different people to have those moments. And we're gonna
yeah,
do that. We're gonna have you guys, and that's gonna happen again.
oh
And you're
yeah,
gonna come back stronger than
oh
than the
yeah,
last time we had you. And so
yep,
that's cool. That's a great thing that I try and keep in my mind, that I'm hopeful about, right? And like I daydream about stuff like that. And this is a
yeah,
record and a band I've been listening to like a whole lot, like, between this, probably the new Tribulation, a couple other records I like, Terminal
yeah,
Bliss, just, music that I'm into, and I daydream about this stuff. So it's really
hell
cool
yeah,
to know that you guys are, writing new records, doing that stuff, sort of keeping busy, but it sucks because you don't feel that connection that we spoke about that brought us to shows and that feeling of wanting to be on both sides again, right?
Yeah.
So what's it like kind of putting out a record, obviously like Cryptovice, that, you know, you're hearing from people, I'm telling it to you, but you can't feel it in that exchange that we're used to. And putting that out in just like this weird time, how has that sort of felt like mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally?
It's been taxing, dude. It's scary. It's real scary, man, because like I said before, like I hit a certain point in my life where I was like, I'm gonna destroy my life for this. You know, this is the decision I'm gonna make because this is what I love and this is what I want more than anything. And you know, it's weird because I feel like my whole life's work, you know, has led to this album, you know, and like not being able to like tour off of it and really like get it out there the way we want to get it out to more people, and having to be forced to work with the internet of all things, something that I'm not a fan of really, you know, is like it's very taxing. Luckily for us though, like it's been so well received. I mean, like it's been insane. It's just been insane. Like I can't even believe it's been received the way it has been, and people have like supported us and trusted us and like believed in us through this pandemic, and like and just helped lift us up like they have, because I don't even want to think about what it would have felt like if we would have just put it out and no one cared, you know. It would have just felt like, God damn it, you know. But it's been really crazy, and it's been stressful, but it's actually been pretty damn good, you know.
Yeah, which
You
is
know,
really cool, and I love to hear that. You know, I like to hear that people are getting in touch, fans are supporting. You know, it's not always just about like buying a t-shirt or money, guys. Like we're human beings, you know what I mean? So like
yeah,
when somebody messages me and just like, dude, I'm just so stoked to whenever Vitus comes back. Like I hope you guys are hanging in there.
yeah,
That
man,
helps, man. That helps me out. Like, you
yeah,
know what I'm saying? And I'm not in like some sort of bad way. Just in general, I'm actually a very fortunate person. But just like we could all use that in whatever we're doing in life, right?
yeah,
And
for
so I
sure,
feel like it's cool for, you know, people to just tell you that, hey, we're listening, you know? And
yeah,
it's a weird time because of, you know, the way that we have to keep our distance from one another, as opposed to all of us getting in a room and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, 250 people in New York like my fucking band. And like they're
yeah,
going nuts in there, you know? Like we can't do it in real time. It almost
yeah,
feels like a different kind of art, like you're a painter, you know, and then later
yeah,
on people see the painting and you're at the opening. You're not doing
yeah,
anything at the
yeah,
moment.
exactly.
So it's weird, you know, like
Hmm.
you know, like people are watching your live stream and you're like in the comments or something and you're watching
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
It's very
very
alienating. It's
weird.
very strange, right?
Hmm.
But I think that for fans and stuff, just to even say and be like, hey, we're here, we're listening, we're doing stuff, that's super fucking cool. And I'm really glad for like a younger band as well that that's what's happening. And you know,
Yeah.
we're obviously fans, and we're excited to have you guys back and doing all that. So in that sort of, you know, spirit of optimism, right? We already know that you're writing. There's probably a great riff or two waiting for you in wherever building that those guys are in right now. But
Yeah.
what are you hopeful for just in the future? And, you know, what would you like to do? Are there any, you know, you're writing any plans or anything that we should know about? Tell the people.
I mean, we're gonna continue the Wrecking Ball. I don't know if you watched our Wrecking Ball live stream with Devourment and Creeping Death, but like we're gonna do that again.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna do that again. We're gonna continue the Wrecking Ball series, but we have something very sick planned for the next one, including another band. We're gonna continue the tradition for this next Wrecking Ball and use the same lineup, like I said, with an additional band
Hmm.
that everyone's gonna love, and we're gonna do something very special. But I'm as far as like what I'm like hopeful for and stuff, like and what our plans are. Like I just want to keep living and keep being happy and keep moving forward. And you know, I want touring to come back. I want to see the world. I want to meet all the people that have supported us and, you know, like lifted us up. And you know, I'm pretty confident that's going to happen before the end of the year. So, you know, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot or anything by saying that, but I'm pretty confident that that's going to happen. And, you know, until then, we're just going to just gonna keep pumping out content. We've got some more music videos coming out. We've got more live streams, which are technically giant music videos more than live
Yeah,
streams. And then, I think we've got some stuff planned locally, maybe for the end of summer. But that's all still up in the air.
sure.
Texas is open completely right now, which
Yeah.
is scary as fuck.
Yeah, it's its
But
own situation, huh?
yeah, so we're still not doing anything, for the time being. We're gonna wait for the numbers to drop, and most of us in the band have got our second vaccination shot already. I've only got my first. I have to wait till the beginning of April to get my second
I'm on
shot.
your
But
schedule too.
yeah,
I'm second shot 4/9. That'll be me.
yeah, I'm 4/13. So yeah, I guess it's kind of the middle of April. But either way, like we're all like we went right away to get it. And we're hoping everyone else just does the same, and we could get back to business. Get
Sure,
back to
yeah,
having
man.
fun and stuff. But I mean, you know, that's really what we're gonna do. We're writing this record. We're hoping to have the next record finished. We're really taking our time with it. We have like we probably have 150 riffs, and then we have 13 or so like song structures put together that need editing, and we're breaking it down. We're breaking everything down, and we're like taking our time with it and making sure we absolutely love it, because we want each record we put out to outdo the last one, and to just be
Sure.
like an evolution of who we are, and like what we've like where we've come from, and everything. So just staying busy, man, staying hopeful,
Sweet.
and I hope everything and everybody is doing the same.
Yeah, dude, I love it. I'm in the same boat as you, feeling that way. I think you guys are a really sick band, really cool. I'm glad that we got to connect and to talk and to just have this chat. And, I look forward to having you guys back. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, man, for sure.
We're out of here. Frozen Soul, Saint Vitus. Thanks a lot, Chad. You're the shit. You guys are a special
Yeah, man.
band. Keep doing what you're doing, all right?
Thanks, brother.
Peace.
Appreciate you, man.
Late.